When Maxie finally woke up after being out for months, it felt like the whole vibe in Port Charles changed. It was a really heavy feeling, and nobody was ready for it, especially Spinelli. He'd been holding on to hope every single day, just waiting for her to wake up and bring back the future he'd imagined for them. When Maxie finally came to awful truth hit her, this wasn't some happy reunion, but the start of everything falling apart. Her memory was all over the place, her feelings a jumbled mess. She kept getting pulled back to a past she thought was still happening. And that really put a big distance between them, way bigger than the time she spent in that hospital bed. In that really shaky, confused moment, Maxie hit Spinelli with something he never saw coming. She wanted to break up. It wasn't anger, not really, and it definitely wasn't coldness. It was just a lot of confusion. You know, like trying really hard to figure out who I was again in a life that seemed totally new and strange. Spinelli, who used to be her rock, now felt like some random guy she just couldn't bring herself to trust again. That decision really hit him hard. It wasn't that she wanted to wound him, it was just that he had staked so much of his emotional well-being on the idea that everything would work out if only she came back to him. It was absolutely devastating, the change that came after. For months, Spinelli pretty much lived by her bedside. He'd whisper to her just hoping she could feel him there even through all the haziness of being unconscious. He'd pictured her waking, reaching out for him and remembering their love as if time hadn't even moved. Instead, he felt a soft, apologetic, heartbreaking distance. Spinelli felt the squeeze like someone was slowly tightening a band around his chest. He really wanted to be there for Maxie to show his support, but deep down, he knew she just wasn't feeling it for him anymore. Everyone around him tried to be nice, but all their concern just made him feel more alone. Everybody was so focused on Maxie getting better, on how she was doing mentally after the poisoning, that Spinelli just kind of floated around the edges. It was like he wasn't even part of her story anymore. Even though he understood it wasn't on purpose, it still really got to him. He'd poured so much love into her, and now it had no place to land. It just bounced around inside him, really hurting as he saw Maxie trying to figure out what she was feeling. The real painful part began when folks started whispering that Nathan might still be alive in Port Charles. Even before she got confirmation, Maxie's eyes lit up with something Spinelli hadn't seen in months, hope longing. A recognition of a life she thought she'd lost. When she woke, the grief hit her all over again. Nathan wasn't someone who died a long time ago. He was her husband, the person who meant absolutely everything to her. Stuck in her damaged memory, like time had just stopped. Spinelli felt the difference right away. Every time she said Nathan's name, that slow, soft way, it felt like a door was just closing on him. A tiny bit more each time. He knew he'd never be able to make her say his name like that. Spinelli kept telling himself it wasn't her fault, she was confused and that she just needed some space and time. But the pressure building up inside him just got worse until he couldn't take it anymore. Each moment just showed him more and more that she was slipping away. It wasn't anything he did wrong, but more like destiny had played a cruel joke, turning moments and memories into something that just hurt him. Spinelli was just stuck in a rut, he couldn't find his way out. He definitely couldn't get mad at Maxie, it just wasn't possible. She'd fallen apart, scared, and trying so hard to figure out who she was anymore. He just couldn't shake the terrible feeling that with every hour she was slipping further and further away. And it was tearing him apart. He kept remembering all the good times they had together. The whole year of 2024, when they slowly put their relationship back together, there was so much laughter, those peaceful, close moments. And that feeling that they really had found their way back to each other. It all felt like a dream that was just slipping away, fading as the sun came up, no matter how hard he tried to keep a hold of it. His friends, the hospital staff, and even his own thoughts were all really getting to him. And he felt like he was about to break. They expected him to be strong, to have patience, and to understand. But how was he supposed to manage all that when everything inside him felt like it was quietly falling apart? The really sad part was Spinelli couldn't even openly grieve. He didn't have that option. He had to keep it together so Maxie didn't feel bad and so her getting better wouldn't be messed up. That way nobody could say he was being selfish. He just bottled up all the pain and panic, forcing himself to smile and say comforting things even though it felt like crap. He saw Maxie start to pull away little by little. First, her physical presence, then her emotions, and finally her mind. She was retreating from the life they'd created and stepping into a different reality, one where he just didn't fit anymore. The toughest thing to grasp was that there was no malice in her actions. She just couldn't recall why she had loved him. The deep love she once had for him simply disappeared, replaced by this intense desire for Nathan. Spinelli knew he couldn't hold a candle to Nathan back then, and it was even clearer he couldn't now. When the rumors about Nathan actually being alive turned out to be true, Spinelli felt his last bit of hope just fall apart. He was left standing there looking at a future he didn't even recognize anymore. Once he was finally alone, the quiet really got to him. It felt like the weight of the world was pressing down. He looked at himself and saw a guy stuck in between, hoping for the best and feeling totally hopeless. He'd spent years trying to show how much he cared, only to have everything fall apart because of things no one could really stop. He deserved better than that. He knew Maxie wasn't leaving because she was being mean. She was just lost and confused, kind of stuck between old memories and what was happening now. Even though I understood why it happened, the heartbreak wasn't any easier to bear. It really made the pain worse, like a constant dull ache right under his ribs. Port Charles was going crazy with excitement, fear, and general chaos about Maxie, and since Nathan might be coming back, Spinelli was just silently shattered. His whole world flipped upside down, just like that. One moment changed everything. Maxie woke up, and instead of her usual loving gaze, there was just this look of uncertainty. Everyone thought her recovery was a win, but Spinelli saw it differently. To him, it was a story where fate always trumped love, and the woman he adored might really be gone for good. Maxie waking up turned into a much bigger mess than anyone in Port Charles saw coming. Her amnesia didn't just make her forget things. It pushed her emotions way back, to a time before Spinelli was even a thought in her heart. When she opened her eyes and mumbled that she was Nathan's wife, everything Spinelli had worked for, every bit of care he'd given her during her recovery, just crashed down. It was a truth he never thought he'd have to deal with. When Maxie thought about it, the years after Nathan passed away just disappeared. It was almost like her grief and all that hard work she put into healing never even happened. She still felt stuck in her old marriage, even though tragedy had ended it a long time ago. Spinelli to her was just someone she barely knew, a guy on the sideline she couldn't quite figure out emotionally. Spinelli wanted to be strong, to just accept that her mind was latching onto an old identity to protect itself. But the feeling of being erased, even if it wasn't on purpose, it was still got more painful as time went by. Maxie kept saying her heart was with Nathan, and the more she did, the more Spinelli felt like he was just an outsider in what should have been his own love story, a part he never wanted. Then came a bunch of emotional changes, and Spinelli really got tested like never before. You could really feel for Maxie his confusion was pretty natural, but he definitely paid the price for it. She was nice to him, but there was this coldness in her that hit him hard right in his chest like a sharp knife. She talked about Nathan, and there was this softness in her voice, a feeling Spinelli hadn't heard in ages. She was sharing memories and emotions, things that felt just as fresh to her now as when they first happened. Spinelli just couldn't measure up to that. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough, but he was up against a memory. A love she kept locked in her mind as something perfect and untouched. This wasn't really a rivalry between two guys who were alive and well. It was more like a silent war deep within. Maxie's broken memory. And poor Spinelli, he was already losing even before he had a chance to start. As Maxie got more lost in her new way of seeing things, Spinelli started to disappear in a way that truly stung, not because she was ignoring him, but because he was simply forgotten. The pressure was coming from everywhere. Friends, doctors, and even people just trying to be kind all told Spinelli to back off from Maxie, to give her room to put her life back together and to keep her from any more emotional upset. But to give her space, that meant throwing away all the progress he'd made after so many years of tough times and making up. Spinelli put in so much effort to earn Maxie's trust back, to get close to her again after all the terrible things that happened and now she can't even remember any of it. He kept a calm face, but inside the unfairness was brewing a real storm. He really didn't want to be selfish, but he just couldn't ignore that gut feeling, that need to fight for the love he knew they had. Even if Maxie didn't remember it anymore, he really needed this badly. That need started to wake something up in him, a kind of determination he'd never let himself feel before. He figured he'd spent way too much time just quietly dealing with bad stuff, letting himself disappear whenever things went wrong. So Maxie's heart was basically back to factory settings, a version of herself that didn't include him. Spinelli realized if he backed off now, he'd lose her for good. Things got even messier emotionally when word started going around Port Charles that Nathan might actually come. Back Maxie, with her memory troubles, really held on to that idea with a fierce hope. She didn't just guess this would happen. In her heart, she felt she truly earned this meeting. Every time she talked about Nathan like he was still around, like he was just off on a trip, it just pushed her and Spinelli further apart. But Spinelli just couldn't bring himself to break her belief, even if it meant she might get back to sensing reality. He really struggled, wanting to protect her feelings, but also needing to fight for what he knew was true about them, even if he was the only one who remembered it that way now. That fight was a new struggle eating at him, a push and pull between feeling for her and needing to protect himself, between letting her get better and not letting himself vanish from her life. Little by little, Spinelli started to change, turning something tough into a plan and moving past a breakup with a fresh sense of purpose. He knew that getting back into Maxie's life meant he'd have to put up a fight. Not with anger, though. It was going to take simply being there, having patience, and just sticking to the undeniable truth of things. He started taking back little bits, going to see her more often, and softly talking about their life together. He just wouldn't let the hospital folks cut him off from helping her get better. These were small victories, but they mattered. Spinelli got it. This wasn't just about winning back her affection. It was about being seen, about who he was, and about all those years he stuck by her no matter what. He'd always been a gentle soul, but now after everything there was this sharp edge to him. like something had been forged inside by all the loss and how set he was on what he had to do. This new Spinelli, bolder, more sure of himself, and not at all keen on blending into the background, really surprised folks who only remembered him as the shy, sweet tech whiz. But it was Maxie losing her memory that really brought out this part of him, throwing him into a conflict he never thought he'd have to deal with. He wasn't just battling her old memories. It felt like fate was trying to snatch her away from him all over again. There was this emotional struggle happening between them, and it slowly turned into a silent battle. Spinelli just wouldn't give up, but Maxie, on the other hand, just kept getting lost in the memory of a marriage that wasn't really there anymore. Knowing it was going to be a tough fight, maybe even really nasty, Spinelli just couldn't sit back anymore. He hadn't fought like this in ages. It wasn't just for love anymore. It was about staking his claim in the heart of the woman who had somehow forgotten him. Maxie's heart, still feeling very much stuck in the past, finds its way right back to Nathan. It's like a magnet pulling them together. And just like that, they instantly get that fiery spark back, you know? The one that made them such a powerful couple in Port Charles. Maxie's memory is kind of stuck before all the bad stuff happened, so she sees Nathan differently. To her, he's not someone who came back from the dead. He's just the husband she's always loved. The anchor she believes she was always meant to get back to. When they reconnected, it was raw and real, fueled by all the feelings of loss she carried. This sparked a passion so strong the whole town couldn't help but notice. So Maxie and Nathan are all hot and heavy again, right? But then there's Spinelli left out in the cold watching them. It's gotta be tearing him apart inside. But instead of letting heartbreak crush him, Spinelli started to change little by little. He became someone new, much tougher, and more driven than the quiet, loyal person he used to be. He's grieving, but it's turning into something else, a sharp focus. He misses Maxie so much, and that feeling is actually pushing him toward a really risky kind of curiosity. There's just something about Nathan coming back that doesn't sit right with him. Even with all his charm, his good looks as a detective, and the easy spark he shares with Maxie, Spinelli can't shake this shadow. It's something cold, kind of mechanical almost, like he's not really there. It's like Nathan is there, but he's not really living like a person should. Once that feeling starts, it just won't shut up. Spinelli, who's just incredible at finding secrets no one else can even see online, starts really digging into how Nathan could have possibly survived. He starts to search with little things, odd medical files, peculiar inconsistencies in Nathan's return, hints of records that were wiped clean. But as he digs deeper, the patterns he finds get more disturbing. Nathan's past keeps catching up, pulling him into old whispers, weird experiments. And the shadow of Faison, that name still gives Port Charles the shivers. Spinelli can't quite believe what he's finding, but with each file, every encrypted note, and all the weird medical stuff, it's getting clearer. Nathan might not be the guy Maxie remembers. Actually, he might not be Nathan at all, at least not the real human Nathan. Maxie used to love, but Spinelli finds out there's this program, right? It's like a twisted comeback project. All thanks to some crazy schemes, Faison left behind, mixing mind games, changing who people are, and messing with their genes. So the idea is that the Nathan next to Maxie isn't quite real. He's more like a mix of what she remembers, what someone else wants her to think, and maybe even something used against her. This news just completely changes everything for Spinelli, like a massive wave hitting him. It puts a whole new spin on Maxie and Nathan's intense relationship, her memory loss when he came back, and even that weird instability Nathan's been showing lately that everyone else just chalks up to trauma. Maxie feels like she's found her soulmate again in Nathan, but Spinelli is starting to notice weird things. He sees little breaks in Nathan's feelings like they're not quite right, and his memories don't always add up. Sometimes Nathan's eyes just go cold, almost as if he's pulling up something that was put there on purpose. Spinelli is really scared by what he's seeing, mostly because he knows Maxie is just too vulnerable right now. She's so wrapped up in her devotion to Peter, who she thinks is her husband, that she can't even recognize the danger that's lurking deep down inside him. As he keeps digging, he starts to see a scary possibility. Nathan might have been brought back for a reason other than love. Maybe he was designed to infiltrate Port Charles, a final plan by Faison to get his influence back in, using the one person who would never doubt him. So Nathan's coming back to life, yeah, that's probably not some amazing miracle. It's more like someone's playing games, using it to mess with Maxie and totally take over how she feels. And here's the kicker, Spinelli thinks Maxie could actually be the solution to whatever secret plan is behind Nathan coming back. This discovery really changes things for Spinelli. He's not that desperate guy anymore begging for love. Now he's like a shadow guardian, doing what needs to be done to keep Maxie safe from something she just isn't ready to hear yet. He's changing, but it's not a breakdown. It's a colder, more deliberate kind of change now. This new clarity, though, puts him right in conflict with Nathan. Nathan just seems to get sharper, more aware whenever Spinelli's around, almost like he intuitively knows Spinelli's a danger. Their silent rivalry turns into a cold psychological war, and every time they interact, there's a tension Maxie can't even pick up on. Spinelli gets it. If he exposes Nathan, Maxie's already delicate state of mind might just break. But if he lets Nathan get closer without stepping in, things could get really bad, way worse than just a broken heart. We're talking consequences linked to Faison's past, stuff that could put a lot more than one woman's feelings at risk. The truth hits Spinelli hard, and he knows he's got to get ready for a bigger fight than just getting Maxie back. He's fighting to keep her safe, to keep her who she is, and to make sure she doesn't lose her mind. So things are changing in Port Charles. Maxie and Nathan are now the hot new couple, totally in love and really feeling it. What they don't know is their whole romance might be based on a dangerous lie. Meanwhile, Spinelli is all by himself, right on the verge of finding out something that could just ruin everything. But as Faison's secret starts stirring again, Spinelli figures out one really awful truth: the fight for Maxie's future. It's just getting started.